Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:06. It's O'Connor and Company this Wednesday in your nation's capital. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Julie, as you know, whenever I tune into the Chris Plant show, I'm often brought to tears, mostly because he just doesn't get to the point. And
if Chris is listening, I'm not laughing at him.
Maybe tears of laughter. But yesterday, it was emotional.
It was.
It was a rare occasion. He had a guest on his program, a very special guest, a friend of this program, one of our favorite guests, but truly a friend and a great man. And, I'm preparing myself because this is
we might have a tissue box.
This is going to be special. Brent Bozell, of course, the founder and president of Media Research Center. And Brent, we often have you on to talk about what you're doing in the Media Research Center and Newsbusters and what the media is doing with their biases. But we did interview you several months ago about the sentencing of your son as he was involved with and got caught up in the events of January 6th. And so I love to be able to bring you on today to sort of finish up that story now that it's concluded for our audience. Tell us what happened after President Trump issued his pardons.
Well, thank you for those words, Larry, and thank you, Julie. Let's set it up. My son participated in the January 6th protest. He broke two windows for which he took full responsibility and was, from day one, prepared to pay whatever price he needed to pay for that. He entered the Capitol. The prosecution came, and they knew who he was all along, but he was doxxed. His family was harassed. They tried to get him fired from his job. They tried to go after his children's school, his church, everything. At the end of the day, the prosecution came to him, and they offered him, I think it was 41 months, something like that, 3.5 years in prison for that. Or they would throw an insurrection charge against him and the weight of the federal government, and he could expect many years in prison. This was what they did to a lot of the protesters who either couldn't afford the legal fees to defend themselves against the federal government or didn't understand that they were being the nature of this legal extortion that was taking place. So they took the deals, and off to prison they went. My son didn't. He protested this, and he said he wouldn't. He would plead guilty for that which he was guilty, but not the insurrection charge. So they did. They threw the weight of the federal government against him. At the 11th hour, 2.5 years after he was first arrested, they hit him with an assault charge. Yep. The assault charge was so ridiculous that I urged people, and I did on this show, I urged people to go to the government site that had the video of the assault, the quote-unquote assault for which he was convicted. And not one person on the face of this earth would agree that was any kind of an assault. Mm-hmm. Because at worst, two jackets the creases may have touched each other. He never even touched a policeman, never even attacked him in any event. They found him guilty, and then at sentencing, they tried to throw a terrorism enhancement charge on top of it. This is a man whose greatest previous legal offense was a traffic ticket, and now they wanted to equate him to Osama bin Laden for doing just what I said. The judge threw that one out. He was sentenced to 45 months in prison. Well, this is a man with a wife, with 3 little girls, and off to jail he went. Off to prison he went for 45 months for doing that. So he is one of the hundreds or thousands who were oppressed, was put in. I don't say he was put in prison. I say he was put in captivity. Yeah. These men were put in captivity, and women too. These men and women were put under the city of Washington D.C. Folks, during the Iran-Contra war, in Nicaragua, in Managua, they had this prison underneath the city called El Chipote. And that's where mothers knew their sons were, wives knew their husbands were, fathers knew their children were. And yet they sat there and they stunk underground. We had prisoners there for 500 days without having due process. This was a tyrannical action. I am so glad it's over. Thanks to God. Hat tip to Donald Trump.
Well, Brent, listen, I'm so excited for you as well. And we want to hear about your son and how he's feeling, how he's doing this morning. And I'm so glad that he's home with his wife and 3 kids. But I want to also make a point here. You hear people saying that, fine, Trump can pardon those that were nonviolent, but the people who were violent, they should go to jail. You see this on the right as well. People saying this isn't normal, we shouldn't do this. But when you hear your story, this is why it's so important, Brent. When you hear your story of what your son was charged with, and this sort of trumped up charge of assaulting a police officer because 2 pieces of clothing met in a crowd of people. This is why people need to realize that some of these charges were excessive and possibly even made up. And then these people were receiving these gigantic sentencing. Don't you think that many people, both on the right and left, but also the general public, doesn't know just how abusive these charges were?
Julie, let's take this, answer this 3 ways, because you're spot on. Number 1, charges were made up. There was a charge made up about my own son. Yep. He was charged with 2 felonies for breaking 2 windows. It was only the judge who caught buried in the Justice Department's report. They had the cost of the replacement of one of the windows. It was a misdemeanor, not a felony. Yeah. He offered to call for a mistrial of that charge right there. They knew what they were doing. They absolutely knew what they were doing. An assault charge. I didn't know. I'm not a lawyer. My guess is that 99% of the public doesn't know. Assault doesn't mean necessarily attack. Yeah. It can also mean interfere with or impede a police officer. Then in my son's case, the judge went out of his way to address the courtroom, and he aimed his remarks specifically at the police, and he said, I want everyone to know Mr. Bozell never attacked a police officer. So it was impeding. So that's what a quote-unquote assault is concerned. The third point I want to make is for those people who have made such a big deal about the heinous nature of the efforts of the activities of my son and others, if you have not made an equal furor about what happened in the summer of 2020 with Black Lives Matter, with $2.1 billion damage, the greatest in the history of the United States, with 24 people killed, with 4 cops killed, with stores burned down, with police stations set on fires, with courthouses attacked, with businesses lost all over America. You can go to bloody hell. I don't want to ever hear another damn word out of any of you.
Brent Bozell, I'm so happy for you. And I'm glad, and I feel your righteous indignation, and you have every right to feel every ounce of it. Are Joe and Mika going to have you on to talk about this by any chance? Because they're doing a lot of coverage. They're covering. I mean, I'm looking now. They're on the pardons again. It's all they're talking about, Brent. I mean, you'd be a great guest, I think.
Do you remember the movie Scanners?
That's when the guy's head exploded.
Yeah, it explode. I can see Joe and Nico doing that. I can see about most of CBS, ABC, CNN, PBS. They're all doing that right now. I love it.
If you've seen Joe's hair lately, I think it is incredibly evoking that exploding head look. But I am so glad your son.
Holy moly! I really do. There's some sexual issues on that one.
Okay. Maybe Joe will be doing OnlyFans. Stop. All right. Brent Bozell, we'll leave it there. We are thrilled that your son is back and home, and send him our love. And by the way, real fast, is this the end, or is he considering some kind of action?
I want it to be the end. Okay. Enough is enough.
Fair enough.
All this.
Fair enough.
Let him enjoy his family.
All right. We shall move on.org. Thank you, Brent.
Thanks,
Brent. It's 8:16.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So you just dropped down to 15 degrees. It's getting colder and colder and colder. Imagine going to church for a national prayer service to heal our nation, and you see, oh, the president is here too. This is cool. This is great. And then you get a personalized sermon from the priest. I'm making Chris Plant quotation marks with my fingers because they call them priests there in the Episcopal Church, but they're not really priests, are they? No, they're not, especially this chick.
They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands.
This is the bishop of the Episcopal Church in the D.C. Archdiocese. That's her church, so technically she has every right to preach however she wants, so that's what she did. She chose that it would be proper and appropriate to do this. By the way, just so you can get an image of this woman, this is, what's her name again? Margaret? Maud?
Booty.
Booty is the last
Yes.
name. Marianne, excuse me. Booty? Do you pronounce that Booty or Bud?
I detect an OnlyFans joke coming, but
That's
I
like
think it's
I am not
Booty.
equating Booty with her in any way whatsoever. But just so you can point out the left wing virtue signaling from her. Her X account, her profile picture shows her wearing her mitre, her bishop's hat, because they pretend to be,
big deal.
high mass kind of things. But she's wearing a face mask, like it's the middle
Should've been
of
a
the
bit of a
pandemic.
warning there.
Yeah, she's got the like it's still COVID time. She probably has the Saint Fauci candles.
Absolutely. In
there.
the church.
Is there a shrine to Fauci
Yeah,
at the
probably.
church? So anyway, my favorite part, of course, was the zoom-ins on J.D. Vance, who recently converted to the Catholic Church. Yeah. But it's supposed to be an ecumenical thing. Who knew it was going to be a diatribe written by Alexandria
It was
Ocasio-Cortez?
absolutely outrageous,
So
Larry.
inappropriate.
It was so inappropriate.
It was rude. It was disgusting.
unbelievable.
But you look at J.D. Vance, and the look on his face is like, are you freaking kidding
First
me?
of all, J.D. Vance is hilarious. He is me in church. That is me in church. And Usha is my husband because Usha, he kept turning to her and saying things, and Usha never took her eyes off that bishop. Or,
She just stayed.
sorry,
Bishop. She is a bishop.
bishop. Good
Episcopalian bishop. Yes.
And Usha never turned. And that's my husband in church. I'm always trying to talk to him during church, and my husband's like, "It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate." So I do love that. But
the inner monologue on J.D.
what
Vance
this
during
woman
all of
did
this
is absolutely outrageous. And if this had been done to Biden, if this had been done to Obama,
Right.
there would have been nonsense. They would have destroyed this bishop's career.
Thank
they would
you.
have had a formal apology within minutes. Okay, I'm not surprised by the hypocrisy, but it is outrageous that the Trumps and the Vances had to sit through this.
As a Catholic, we have to sort of spend a lot of time, as they say, pope-splaining, because our pope will say something very left-wing and liberal while he's sitting on the back of a plane, and it's like, oh, I thought he was infallible. Now that the pope says that, you have to agree with him. And it's like, no, that's not what papal infallibility means, and we Catholics, I don't like it when he does that. But let me just tell you something. I like having a day like this where you all have to explain yourself now,
Yeah, and
okay?
They won't. But let me tell you something.
Where is the statement from the Episcopal Church?
Yeah, but honestly, for those who are not aware, the Episcopal Church is a failing religion. It is a failing.
They lost 60,000 in 2023 who said we're not Episcopal anymore.
This is why you actually have married priests in the Catholic Church, because in the 80s, Pope John Paul made a special dispensation to allow Episcopal priests to switch over to the Catholicism.
Convert to
And they
Catholicism.
didn't have to leave their families. They were like, bring them along. So you actually, that's a shock to some people, but there are actually a handful of married priests in the Catholic faith.
I don't think I've said this on the air, but my daughter's future father-in-law.
That's right.
My daughter, the man that my daughter is marrying this May, his dad is a Catholic priest.
Was he Episcopalian?
He was Episcopalian.
There you
or
go.
Anglican, same thing. Really,
And
the American.
There are a lot of splits within the Episcopalian, and this is happening with the Methodists, it's happening with a lot of Protestant religions. Everybody's coming home.
Right.
Anyway, just kidding. But I will say, this is not a surprise to a lot of people who've been following the destruction of the Episcopalian religion in America. Yeah. This was just par for the course.
Donald Trump's statement last night. The so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. It's true. There is video of her for the last 10 years screaming about Donald Trump.
Yes.
She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of legal migrants that came into our country and killed people. Illegal migrants. I apologize. I misread that. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It's a giant crime wave that is taking place in the USA. It's true. She's saying, have mercy on these people. Where is her mercy? Could we get the audio of her sermon that she delivered the day after Laken Riley was murdered? Yeah, we don't have that because she doesn't care. She picks and chooses who she wants to have mercy for and who she wants to sort of. Can we hear how she lectured Joe Biden about his open border policies that have brought crime and sexual assault to the neighborhoods in this town right now at the hands of these illegal immigrants? No, she does not. She said she is not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology.
They absolutely do.
And he's right.
They absolutely do. And I will tell you the other thing that she said really quickly, she said transgender children.
Yes.
No such thing. It shows the depths, the depravity of this woman. It is sickening. And yes, she does owe an apology to her congregation and to the country.
It's 8:24. And
making sense of your world.
Thanks for taking my call.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Greatly appreciated.
Making sense of the news. Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:37. It's O'Connor and Company. Julie Gunlock makes me yell sometimes.
So annoying.
During what's supposed to be a break while I'm preparing for the next topic. And she's yelling at me. But I just do want to take a moment to tell you that your social media post that you did yesterday, which is getting a lot of attention, about the decline of the Episcopal Church in America.
Yes.
Specifically here in the D.C. area is quite good.
Yes,
in fact, if you could just, because we got to get to some of the things that Trump did yesterday, but this isn't just about the bishop. She's awful. She was terrible. She was out of line. But there's more going on here.
There's a whole, just 2 seconds. This is a bigger problem, and I live in Alexandria, Virginia, very close to the Virginia Theological Seminary. It's founded in 1923, again located there, and they invited just a week after the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. They invited a pastor from. An Episcopalian pastor. He has a ministry in Bethesda, and he said some really shocking, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel things
pro-terrorist
to
things.
The seminarians. Yeah. And I was in the audience. I was shocked. There was no pushback. There was no questions from the seminarians or the faculty that was present there about the Hamas hostages. Yeah. It was pretty disturbing. So this thread is just to say, look, this is bigger than this one minister. It goes even to the seminaries that are teaching these Episcopalian ministers.
Yeah.
Thank you for...
And I know that the last thing you want is a couple of Catholics here trying to lecture you about how you're supposed to run your church. But I study into this. Last thing I checked, there's this whole sola scriptura thing where, Bible's supposed to be the sole infallible authority over your church, you Episcopalians. I'd love for this bishop to come on this program. And I'm being completely genuine. She's done a lot of media. I've seen her on CNN. I've seen her all that. Well, you're here in D.C. We are the number one talk station in Washington, D.C. So maybe you could responsibly come on here and just merely explain to us where your transgender ideology is found in the Holy Scriptures.
Love it.
That's what I'm like, because you are sola scriptura. I would love for you to explain that, because my understanding is that the Bible is your sole infallible authority on your faith, and you just from the pulpit during a service preach to the president about transgender children, and I'm having trouble finding that in Scripture. Thank you very much.
Are you worried about the future of your church? It's
well, we might ask a follow-up about that. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you,
some big changes here, obviously, from President Trump's executive orders that have already been implemented. First of all, this didn't require an executive order. It was just a decorating tip. But if you go into the Oval Office, you'll see the bust of Winston Churchill return to its rightful place. It's been there for decades. It was a gift from the British government. It was removed under Barack Obama. Trump brought it back. And Biden had it removed again.
Yes.
Because he does whatever Barack Obama tells him to do. That's what the Biden presidency was, by the way.
And the left loves to act like Winston Churchill is some big racist, right? Because of the policies in India, whatever his statements about Mahatma Gandhi. But he also saved the Western world. It's a minor thing.
It's a I know it's a very controversial statement to make, but and by the way, to be fair, there's some people on the fringy right who are also very skeptical of Sir Winston, and that bothers me just as much.
Yes.
Also, if you work for the State Department or if you are work for any sort of outpost or diplomatic mission of the State Department around the world, it's a consulate, an embassy. When you go to work today, you'll see just one flag flying out in front of that beautiful edifice, and it'll be the American flag. Not a rainbow flag, not a transgender flag, not a Black Lives Matter flag, not what, I don't know. Just the American flag. That's
right.
a new rule from your new Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and that's a good thing, I think. Also, if you work in a federal DEIA department, I don't know what the A stands for, by the way, but
Adversity? I don't know.
no. But as of today, at the end of the day, your workday today, you're on paid leave pending further notice. Every single federal diversity, equity, and inclusion office has been taken out of business. But also in here is very interesting. I love this. We're aware, this is the memorandum, we're aware of efforts by some in government to disguise these programs by using coded or imprecise language. If you're aware of a change in any contract description or personnel position description since November 5, 2024, that was right after the election, of course, to obscure the connection between the contract and DEIA or similar ideologies, please report all facts and circumstances to DEIAtruth@opm.gov. So, by the way, if you're doing business, if you've got a contract or if you've got a contract pending or a RFQ or whatever with the federal government out there, and you had to answer and go through a bunch of DEI hoops for that contract or request for proposal, the RFP, RFQ, you should report that to the OPM because they want to know about it. DEIAtruth@opm.gov. That's some good stuff. A lot of people are concerned, why are they on paid leave? Well, again, federal government, federal employees, they got to figure out, at the very least, even if they can't get rid of them, they could get a new job, like cleaning up all the graffiti off federal buildings, perhaps.
Yes.
Or shoveling the snow.
Yeah.
Or they'll find something for you to do. Unless you want to go work somewhere else.
No, I don't care what they do. Honestly, just get out.
Yeah.
Just get out and stop this race hustling.
Get a real job.
Yes, get a real job.
What else are we doing here? I'm just trying to look through all the list of changes already.
Well, I mean, honestly, think of it. He's been in office for what? Is it 24 hours? 24,
almost 36 hours now.
Look at what he's done. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And these press conferences, he said more in these 36 hours than Biden and Kamala put together.
And only one of his cabinet secretaries has been put in place, Marco
Hopefully
Rubio.
we'll change
Just
that
wait
this
until
week.
the rest get in.
Yes.
It's 8:43. I want to tell you about...
Finally, the truth behind the headlines. It's the Vince Coglianese Show, weekdays 3 to 6 on WMAL.
A little bit more news. We got a great upgrade here for people who care about justice in Washington. Real fast, though, I do want to wish a happy anniversary to the first couple, President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. It's their wedding anniversary today, 20 years. Man,
You better get her something nice. No can openers.
Didn't you get a can opener in your last anniversary?
Not my anniversary.
Well, but it wasn't your 20th.
It was like my birthday or something.
That makes it better.
And I remember on air you giving Derek. He's probably listening right now.
I don't say his name anymore because I don't want him to get trouble at work because Darren Gunlock is a very easy. I mean, there's not a lot of Darren Gunlocks out there, and he got his wife a can
Thank you for
opener.
saying the full name there.
Yeah.
That was great, Larry.
I think people could put it together.
If he's going to get fired him for the can opener stuff. Seriously.
What kind of can opener did you get?
Very nice.
Better be. Platinum.
Poor Darren.
Anyway, big changes going on in the Justice Department, as you know, and this is music. Boy, talk about music to our ears. We've had to suffer through woke prosecutor Matthew Graves here in D.C., who he basically did two things. He let criminals, hardened criminals, violent criminals, walk free in the streets of Washington, D.C., and went after Grandma, who was walking through an open door at the Capitol building on January 6th. He is now gone. He has been replaced by, Ed Martin. Ed Martin, the former president of Phyllis Schlafly's Eagle Forum.
That's right.
And now he has moved on to be the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. I mean, I love it when guests on our show end up doing good and getting big jobs, and I hope he continues. We would love to talk to new U.S. Attorney of the District of Columbia, Ed Martin, on a regular basis here on this program.
Are you tired of winning yet?
No. We're only, this is day 2. We're only almost 48 hours into this, and it just keeps getting better and better. In fact, speaking of tired of winning, Justice Department is now, this just broke in the last 30 minutes, Associated Press, DOJ directs prosecutors to investigate local jurisdictions that try to obstruct immigration enforcement. In other words, if you're sitting in a sanctuary county or city right now and your local law enforcement is not allowed to cooperate with ICE, with criminals, they're going to be investigated by the Justice Department.
Get ready, Northern Virginia.
DOJ, write this down. Have you got a pen, Justice Department? Are you listening? It's 100 Edison Park Drive, Gaithersburg, Maryland. That's the Montgomery County Police Department. I'm sure that there are a lot of cops right there who would love to tell you what's been going on in Montgomery County at the direction of the elected officials there and their sanctuary policies and the crime that has infested this county over the last 10 years.
I want to check with some Northern Virginia jurisdictions.
Sure, but Virginia gets plenty of time here, and you've got a good attorney general going after it at Jason Miyares.
True, good point.
Let's fix Montgomery County, 852.
Children. Learn more at stjude.org.
That's a wrap. Julie Gunlock, thank you. Go home and play with that can opener. Here comes Chris Plant. Chris Plant, hey, now, you are not Episcopal.
That's true.
But I think you go to the National Cathedral often for various things. And
it can be part of the walking tour, you
right.
know. And, and it's a wonderful example of Western civilization and architecture and engineering and culture.
And then there's the bishop.
And then, like Monty Python, the bishop. And I gotta tell you, she's got a lot of issues. She's a left-wing political radical who's risen to the top in Washington D.C. of the Episcopal Church. Yeah. And honestly, I love the conversation you were having earlier. I was listening closely and having a nice time. And maybe from now on, presidential events at St. Matthew's or at the National Shrine.
There's a fine priest in Arlington. His last name is Scalia, who might